I stopped supporting my brother's family after he said, "No place for losers." That's why I wasn't invited to Christmas. Now he's losing it. Hey Reddit, I've been dealing with a difficult situation with my brother, and I need to get some perspective. I want to share my story because I've learned some tough lessons about family, boundaries, and enabling toxic behavior. Here's what happened. I'm Michael, and I have an older brother named Jacob. Growing up, we were always close. At least I thought we were. Our parents raised us to believe that families should always have each other's backs, and I took that to heart. I had a pretty decent life, and Jacob struggled with maintaining a steady job. He eventually married Kelly, and they had kids. I always thought that he'd get it together eventually, and I didn't mind helping out when they needed it. Jacob's financial troubles were constant, and at first I didn't mind stepping in. It started small, a few $100 here and there to help with rent, groceries, or school supplies. No big deal. I'd cover the basics for them and figure that it was part of being a family. But soon the small favors turned into regular requests. Every few weeks, Jacob would reach out for something. Money for utilities, for the kids' activities, for car repairs. At first, I thought it was just a rough patch, and I had the means to help, so I kept doing it. I didn't think much of it. But as time went on, I started noticing that it wasn't just about the essentials anymore. Jacob seemed to expect that I would always be there to bail him out. He began to rely on me more, and it became clear he wasn't making any effort to change his situation. I was just his safety net, and the more I helped, the more he expected. And honestly, the gratitude started to fade. I remember one day I had to turn him down for the first time. He needed money for his kids' summer camp, and while I usually didn't mind helping with things like that, this time I couldn't swing it. I had some personal expenses that month, and I had already helped them more than I should have. When I said I couldn't help, Jacob responded, "No place for losers." Those words stung more than I can describe. He essentially called me a failure because I couldn't meet his demands anymore. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about family. This was about him treating me like a resource, not a brother. I was crushed, and I spent the next few days thinking about everything I'd done for him. I realized that I had been enabling his irresponsible behavior for years. It wasn't helping him. It was allowing him to avoid the hard work of standing on his own 2 feet. So I decided to stop. I cut him off financially. I didn't expect much backlash at first, but when Jacob found out, he wasn't happy. He called me in a panic, demanding I start helping again. He said things like, "You can't just leave us hanging. We won't survive without you." He sounded desperate, but I stood my ground. I told him I was done. He needed to figure things out himself, but things got worse from there. It turned out Jacob wasn't being honest with me about where the money was going. Kelly reached out to me through a lawyer, revealing that Jacob had been secretly funneling the money I gave him into a hidden account. He had been using it for gambling and other personal indulgences, while the rest of his family struggled. Kelly was devastated. She had no idea that Jacob had been hiding this from her. She was done. She began making plans to leave him, and I supported her. I helped her find a new place to stay, arranged for her to move out of state while Jacob was away for work, and did what I could to help her and the kids start fresh. It was a hard decision for Kelly, but she couldn't keep living like this. When Jacob returned and found out that his wife and kids had left, he was furious. He blamed me for everything. He said I ruined his life, but I couldn't take the blame for his actions. He was the one who had been lying, gambling, and taking advantage of me. The truth hit him hard, but he refused to take responsibility. Jacob continued to spiral after Kelly and the kids left. He was alone, angry, and still refusing to face the consequences of his own actions. I tried to be supportive of Kelly and the kids. They were thriving in their new life, and I couldn't help but feel proud of them. But Jacob, he was stuck in his old ways, too proud to admit that he had brought this on himself. Now, months later, Jacob's life is in freefall. He's still trying to rebuild, but he hasn't changed. He keeps blaming everyone else for his problems, especially me. He reaches out every few weeks, trying to get me to help him again, but I've made it clear that I'm not going back down that road. He needs to take ownership of his life, and I can't keep enabling his behavior. It wasn't an easy decision. In fact, it's been heartbreaking. I never wanted to turn my back on him, but I had to set boundaries. Aida,